Good afternoon. I'd like to call the Board of County Commissioners Transportation Workshop to order for March 22nd, 2022. I want to welcome everybody here today. We'll begin our meeting with the invocation by Commissioner Harvey, and I'll lead us in the pledge. Please stand if you're able.
Let's bow our heads. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for today, a day we've never experienced before. We ask for healing for those who are sick amongst us. Father, we ask for your direction in this meeting today. Let all things be done in right and decency and in order, Father. We ask for the blessings of our first responder and our military, Father, as they're protecting us out there in this world. Pray for Ukraine, Father, for the situation they're under. Father, we ask that you just give us wisdom and guidance. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Harvey. We'll move down to public comment on agenda items. This portion of the agenda is designed to allow citizens an opportunity to bring matters to the attention of the board. It's not reasonable to expect that the board will engage in debate or deliberation on matters on which the board had received no prior information. If you can fill out a comment card, we appreciate that. You don't have to. But we'd like for you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. So is anybody wishing to make public comment on any of the agenda items? Okay, seeing none, we'll move down to the workshop schedule. And commissioners, if it's okay, we're going to move a couple of items around a little bit. We're going to start with the item B, Public Works, bonding of contracts to maintain dirt roads throughout the county. So we'll ask Mr. Troxel.
Hey, good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a discussion that we wanted to have today on our MSBU contract specifically, but as bonding and for overall contracts as well. We wanted to have that whole discussion. But this one specifically is payment and performance bonds on MSBU contracts throughout the county. Currently, we hadn't bid this out. The original bid was 12, 15 years ago, so we rebid them out last year, but we put the performance and payment bonds in those contracts when we put them out. And so, but we just wanted to have the discussion today. Is that the right thing to do, to have performance and payment bonds on MSBU contracts where it's kind of a task order type of contract for these folks? So that's the discussion we wanted to have today.
Okay, we'll start with questions. Commissioner Turner?
Mike, these are two completely separate issues. The first issue is MSBU's. It's almost impossible to do bid bond performance and payment bonds on task orders. It's almost impossible because in order to do it correctly, you would actually have to put the task off until the bid bonds come through or the payments and performance bonds come through on it. That would take 2 to 3 weeks in today's world, maybe longer. So it's two different issues completely in my book. MSBU work, task orders, whatever, I'd say no, remove that if you have it in there. You still have the language in it that says that if they don't perform adequately, that we can remove them from the contract, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And so basically the performance and payment bond was based on their cost for 12 gradings every year, for mowing. So that was what.
But they don't know what them are. I mean, they can bid it to start with, but in a performance and payment bond, the way it actually works is that you have to have a contract amount. And so you could write them on task orders, but it's going to hold every task order you got up for at least a couple of weeks. I don't know how fast your MSBU contractors bond companies work, but I know mine, if I can get a full-blown performance and payment bond written on a new item, and then not only that, because of the minor amount of the task order, you may have, you pull a number out of the air, you may have $500,000 in task orders on that contract throughout the year. But that would be a completely different amount of money that you pay for a bond on a one-time $500,000 bond than if you did $10,000, $50,000 task orders. It would cost a lot more money to do them as you went, not including that every task order would have to be held up until such time as the bond was released, the amount was driven. Now, I know that a lot of times you put together a task order on the MSBU by saying, you know, we're gonna need approximately 20 loads of dirt, and we're gonna need approximately 3 loads of millings, or whatever the case may be, and you put this task order together for them to go fix that road. There's really not a hard contracted amount of money in a lot of instances. It's so much of a unit price to go in and do it. So that's almost impossible to write a performance and payment bond on. So on the performance and payment bond side for the MSBUs, I don't see how you could do it. I think that needs to be removed from what we do, because we have the language in there to protect the county. If you don't perform, we're taking your contract away. So that's a whole different issue than, do we need performance payment bonds and bid bonds on other projects throughout the county?
They are separate, but
Yeah.
it's not a bid or it's not a performance or payment bond per task order. It was based on, for the whole MSBU for the year, it would take approximately this amount of money based on their unit cost to grade every road.
But the only way that you're gonna get a bond, you don't just get to pick an amount and pay for it. That's not the way they work. It's like borrowing money from the bank. It's literally
Right.
that intensive. And so when you go in and you say, okay, we think this contract's gonna be approximately $500,000, so we want a $500,000 performance and payment bond. I don't know about Onyx or your other guys, but I'd be hell to get around my place, because you don't have a solid contract amount with an end date in sight. You have a guess at what you're gonna use for that year. Bond companies, performance and payment bonds don't like guessing. They want solid facts, solid contracts, solid amounts of money. It's got to be solid, or they just won't issue them at all. So on MSBUs, I just don't see how you could even require a performance and payment bond on a task order type project. I just don't see how it would work. I don't know how you've been doing it the last year.
Again, it was based on, we know how many miles are in the MSBU. We know what they bid per mile. We know how many grass cuttings that they're required to do per year. And so we know what that cost is per mile.
So
And
you're doing performance and payment bonds on required minimums is what you're
Correct,
doing right
correct.
now.
Yes.
But see, the problem with that is, if you're working your surety bond correctly, that's what performance and payment bonds are. If you're working your surety bond correctly, then you should close out that surety bond at the end of every amount of money that surety bond is written for. And if we're not having exact amounts when they close out with exact change orders that are closed out too, then the bond company won't write them anymore, because I don't care how deep your pockets are, you have a bonding capacity.
Right.
Whatever that is. So, you know, you may have $1 million bonding capacity, but you've got $1 million worth of work. Well, around my place, it's a lot more than that, but anyhow, around my place, we juggle that a lot of times to make sure that we have enough bonding capacity to do certain projects that we've got going at the same time. So all we're doing is basically burning up some of the bonding capacity for the MSBU contractors, when we're actually not getting a thing out of it. Because I think, this is just my opinion, but I think that you wouldn't have anywhere to go with this if they didn't perform, other than to take the contract, and you're gonna have that you're gonna have that language in there anyhow. So we're just paying money for a performance and payment bond that we shouldn't be paying on at all. I'd require, when you bid the things out, I'd require a bid bond maybe. And the reason why is because a bid bond gives you a different type of contractor than if you don't give them. Somebody that can't come up with a performance and payment bond can't come up with a bid bond either. The bid bond is the whole fact of a bid bond is predicated on the premise that the bond company will write that performance and payment bond behind the bid bond. But on MSBU, I don't even think, to be honest with you, don't even think that's necessary on MSBU work. I don't think bond work's necessary, because you have the language in there. If you don't perform to our written standards, to these specifications, we can, within 30 days, take it away from you. I mean, isn't that in there?
Yeah, we have the general language in there.
Yeah, that language, and so,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
so I hear what your intent is, but the problem we're gonna face is that there's a Florida statute that requires a bond if the project's over $200,000.
At 200,000.
Right, some of these MSBU projects are over 200,000.
And is that including county money and state money, or state money only on that?
County money and
Doesn't
state.
matter, I don't think.
It says the project, it doesn't differentiate between where the funding source is.
Okay.
There is a workaround.
Yeah, they just need to bust the contracts up to where they're $200,000 or less. That's
That's
all
right.
they need to do to work around them.
That's right.
Rich, I really don't see how you can require a performance and payment bond on task order work. I just don't see how you could. I mean, I'm doing this from experience on
I hear you,
if
but-
I was doing this, how I could come up with this bond for the county. I don't know that I could come up with it, and our bonding capacity is pretty lucrative, and I don't know that I could furnish that bond.
No one.
I'll have to look and see. Some of them might be over that, some of them are not, but I bet a lot of them are over $200,000.
That's good for now, Mr. Chairman. I reserve the right to speak again later, though.
Okay. Commissioner Rawls? I agree with about 99% of what Commissioner Turner just said. I would not encourage people to go get a bid bond and not get the bond that comes behind it, because bid bonds don't cost you any money. And I think the bonding agents would be unhappy with you if you just went around and get a bunch of bid bonds. But he's right. The workaround is you issue a contract that can be renewed upon each mowing and grading, or you issue a task order. There is no payment and performance portion of it. It would be only performance because they don't have anything out of pocket. Why would we request a payment bond? That would be completely asinine, because you're performing a service, you're not providing any materials. So if this guy goes out and leases a loader or a grader or something to complete the project, bid bond or the payment bond is not going to cover that anyways. So I don't know if you're right or wrong as far as this goes with the state. You know, if the state requires a bond on anything over $200,000, the way to get around it would be to cut it up into multiple small contracts and not hit that $200,000 threshold if that's the intent. At the end of the day, we're talking about grading roads. We're not building buildings. And you have the right to terminate the contract at any time. Even if you had a PMP bond in place, going after that and getting it paid is you'll be years down the road trying to get that resolved. And by then you've already got somebody in there doing the work anyway. So I think the whole thing is ludicrous myself. I think we need to find a way to get around it. That's just my opinion. Okay. Commissioner Harvey?
Well, I think we hit the unintended consequences, Mr. Chairman. Trying to do the right thing by putting in minimum standards, and now we possibly put ourselves in jeopardy here. I'm not in favor of any bonds for MSBU, but Rich and I were talking last week, and Rich, I thought you didn't want to just talk about MSBU roads. You wanted any grading of county roads at that point. So it wasn't delineated between MSBU and county, is that right?
That's correct. I mean, if you're gonna create a standard on what people who are working with county have to do, make that a fair standard across the board. I wouldn't differentiate between MSBU or non-MSBU projects.
So maybe what we,
I don't understand that. What do you mean? From MSBU to MSBU, not have a
No.
difference?
MSBU to non-MSBU projects don't create different standards. Have one set of standards across the board for people that are dealing with the county.
But it's a
Oh,
completely
okay.
different issue.
Well, it may be different types of work, but
but you're not going to have a
Completely different issue.
You're not going to have a $200,000 non-MSBU road that needs grading. You're not going to have that problem.
Not grading, but you would have it for a lot of other repairs and culvert work and
Well,
repairs.
that's where I'm going next.
That's why I'm saying it's two different issues here. We've
Exactly.
got to look at it from two different points of view. The MSBU's are a different animal. you know, if we can get around them, then a performance bond is just costing us money and there's nothing we're getting out of it. Nothing we're getting out of it because you couldn't go attached to one of them bonds. I just don't see how. So you're gonna have to go back on the revision in the contract that allows you to just take the contract back and go out and find another contractor. That's the only recourse you're gonna have in this.
Right.
I don't see us going after a performance and payment bond on somebody that doesn't perform when they're only performing services. And I'm with Commissioner Rawls. I don't believe your payment bond's gonna cover the lease to somebody, cause the lease is not liable back to the county anyhow in some instances.
So how do we get?
It would
Mr.
cover the
Troxel?
materials, lime rock, that type of thing. If they're just for clarification purposes, if you go forward, that's what it would cover.
If provided by the contractor?
The payment
it
bond,
is.
yes.
Yes.
But we don't have that now, right?
Yeah, we do.
No, we have them now.
I
I
mean,
thought-
they provide they provide
Okay, so
everything.
they're private, they're not
They give
using
us,
our
they give
materials.
us unit cost per ton, or
Okay.
per unit price for lime
Why
rock.
don't we direct purchase our materials, and that'd take most of that out of it.
Okay, I have the floor.
You have the floor. Yes, sir.
Sorry.
So, no, you're
My
fine.
apologies.
You're fine, no, you're fine. But I do think we need to find ways around this, and I think Commissioner Turner's exactly right. We gotta find a solution here. We have one contractor who basically, we have one contractor who bid it after the other contractor that we had from out of town came in and played around for a couple times and then left. We didn't go after their bond, we didn't do anything. So, but we're gonna use up one person's bonding capacity. The other ones, we're gonna force a bond on them that we ain't never gonna collect on. So I think the unintended consequences is bit us in the butt again. And we gotta find a way around this. So unfortunately, we don't have the correct numbers right now. We're waiting on that to come in. What the grading possibility, what, if it's under 200,000, if it's just grading. But I think we don't need any of it, frankly, for dirt roads. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Adamczyk?
So could a solution to that possibly be breaking up the bid process into quarters of the year or halves of the year? I think there's only two that I remember that seemed to be over 200,000. The rest were way under. And I think one was just under. I think there's only one that's over and one was just under. I mean, in that case, if we have two that are close, bid the other ones out normally, because we're not falling in that threshold without the bond. And the ones that we know are gonna be close, or they're gonna approach close as inflation goes up, bid them into 4 quarterly contracts, and the same person can bid on all 4, or?
You can. That's very difficult for a vendor. Understand, a vendor, so I'm advocating, in procurement, you advocate for both sides of the fence, right? You don't really care, but it'd be very difficult for a vendor to win quarter 1, lose quarter 2 and 3, because they're amping up service, staff, equipment, everything. And so you're handicapping that vendor quite substantially if you're gonna break
But-
that contract like that.
Couldn't you put all those quarters out at the same time, though? Then you're not handicapping them.
You could, but in that same sentence, if I come back and I make an award to you quarter 1, Commissioner Turner quarter 2, Commissioner Pickens quarter 3, Commissioner Harvey quarter 4, they may not be able to afford to do that work for just a quarter. I ran out of quarters, Commissioner Rawls, I'm sorry. You get quarter 5. Fifth quarter around here. Okay, I'm sorry, it was not
Or
intentional.
half years. I'm just trying to think of ways to divvy it up.
Right.
Or divvy the MSBU's up into smaller sizes.
Yeah, but you know,
So I
And
think
you
that,
get into what they didn't agree to that.
What Julian's saying is the mobilization costs that would increase to the county if somebody didn't get all 4 quarters.
No, I understand that.
well,
No, because
yeah, it would. And that vendor is at a very big handicap. That hurts that vendor substantially, and that's bad for us.
I don't know, I would think if we had 3 vendors bidding on the same thing and they were bidding on 2 half years, they're gonna bid the same per half year and it's gonna average out to the same bid and it just gets rid of the bond possibly.
But they're not, because they don't have equipment for 6 months. If they're gonna buy a piece of equipment to do a job, they don't get to give it back in 6 months if they no longer get
No,
that.
I get that, but if they're put out to bid at the same time, I don't see a guy going, I'm gonna bid on January through June, And I'm not gonna bid on June through this, I just don't see that happening. I mean, I guess it's possible, but I don't see a contractor doing that. I'm not a contractor, so.
In today's, is it my?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm done. It was just an idea to try to
And
split it
today-
up.
in theory, it's not a bad one, but
No.
in reality, it won't work. For 5 years now, we've tried our best, because 5 years ago, when I became a commissioner, you had to have a performance and payment bond, bid bond, you had to be DOT certified, you had to be all kinds of stuff in order to just bid on any of this work at all. So in the last 5 years, we've definitely moved this in the right direction, but it's become a little bit cumbersome. And I think that the thing is that the only statute that I know about that would affect some of these would be 2 of these MSBU's, and they're the ones that are over $200,000, correct?
Correct. Well, as of today's prices.
Well, we don't have a lot of choice over the statute deal, the $200,000, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're building and selling widgets to the county or whatever, you drop that 200,000, you gotta have a performance payment bond, that's statute. It doesn't matter if it's school board, county, city, makes no difference. So,
correct.
but I just feel like that we could find a way that, and it could be, and just brainstorming like Commissioner Adams' act was a minute ago, it could be that we do this like you do tax certificates. That say that you go in there and say, okay, on these 2 only, we got $200,000. How many days of the year would you work for $200,000? And then if one of them says 54 days and one of them says 53 days, obviously the guy that had 54 days just won because he'd worked longer for the same amount of money. So I don't know, I'm just brainstorming.
Okay, and I'm trying to help you as well. So I don't have the mathematical breakdown of each of the MSBU's, as Commissioner Harvey said, and what our annual expectations are for each of those. But if you could give us some time to bring back a plan that may accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. I understand the intent of the board and I understand the complications of the bonding. We may be able to structure the bid in a fashion that would allow us to accomplish everyone's goals.
Even easier than what we just talked about would be to just go in there, and if the MSBU is so large that it costs $385,000 a year to maintain it, split the damn thing down the middle.
Accounting wise, that's gonna be a nightmare because you've got one pot of money.
I understand, Julie.
Okay.
I really truly do, but, and maybe we need to split the pot of money in half for each side, I don't know. So I'm not saying that all these are perfect options or whatever, I just know for us, trying to reach out and making somebody come up with a performance bond when there's no fixed contract in place doesn't make walking around sense in the construction world. And this is just construction, they're grading roads instead of
Gotcha.
remodeling buildings, it's essentially the same process. So, I think we have got to find a way. I think we've gotten the DOT thing out of it, which is a good step in the right direction, which has allowed people to save the county money because it's allowed people to bid on that. We've got it in there to where if you don't perform, we're going to take it away from you and find somebody else, and you're not getting the one next year. I'm assuming that language is in there too. That you don't perform, you don't get to bid it again next year and then not perform again. So, you know, I think that that's the easiest thing to do. If you only got 2, maybe 3 of them that are over 200,000, split them down the middle on a certain road, and then they're less.
If you'll give Nilda and I some time to take a detailed look at those bigger MSBU's and the ones we think are tripping that threshold this year, I believe that we can come up with a suitable solution that would keep us under the state's threshold of 200 grand and allow us to move forward as I hear the intention of the board.
You want a motion to that effect?
Yes, sir, if you'd allow.
Okay, wait a minute.
What are you pointing at?
Okay, go ahead, go ahead.
My motion would be to do exactly that, to bring back,
Good.
different ways that we can get around this, legally get around this issue, and not require bid bond performance or payment bonds on MSBU work.
Second.
We've got a proper motion, proper second, so we're going to start discussion now. Commissioner Harvey?
Splitting the MSBU's will be costly, but it can be done. ILE North and ILE South wasn't split, but it was at one time considered, it was going to be a big one. And we split that up, so it can be, West Putnam is the biggest one, and that could be split down the middle. And actually, we've talked about even trying to add a third one out there because it goes so far over to Baden-Powell that it really would be. Mr. Turner, I need to ask a question. Is your motion no bond required under 200,000 per project?
Per MSBU, right? Per
MSBU.
MSBU.
Per MSBU project?
MSBU bids, yes.
So if there's one for 150,000 on the MSBU, it doesn't require any bonding, period.
No,
That's your motion.
that's my motion.
Thank you, sir.
Was that your second, sir?
Absolutely.
Okay, Commissioner Rawls?
We were already at 150 on no DOT certifications and no bond.
I don't think so on this.
It was 250
250 on.
FDOT.
for FDOT.
We waive DOT. What are we currently doing? So do we have somebody that currently has a contract that does not have a bond in place?
Yes.
Okay, why is it,
They're not actively engaged in the work at this time.
but they have a contract?
Well, they've been formally awarded by the board, which is what brought this to
Okay.
light.
So it was put up to bid without a requirement for a bid bond, or, correct?
Did not require a bid bond, it did require payment and performance.
Okay. Why would we put something out that didn't require a bid bond? It's just, and then the next question, before you answer that, is, have we had these MSBU's done in the past where there was no bonding requirement?
Yes, for many years.
Yeah,
Why can we do it then, we can't do it now? What's changed?
Well, the threshold was lower at that time, and I can't tell you that anybody understood the statutes. I wasn't here when the last bid was done, nor was the staff before you. So why past actions were taken, I'm not gonna get into trying to explain to you. All I can tell you is that we do have the statute that we have to follow as far as bonds are required. As far as the bid bond is required, we have heard from vendors that it does prohibit them from wanting to participate on a bid bond because they don't want to go through the hassle of getting a bid bond to not get awarded the work. So we
A phone
have,
call,
Yeah, bid bond, he's right, bid bond.
a phone call.
I don't disagree with
I can call my bonding
you.
agent up and I can have one in hand in a few seconds.
I don't disagree with you,
by
but we
email.
did try in an
That-
attempt
that's-
to be user-friendly for our vendors
What
as
I'm
much
saying
as
is that-
possible.
That's hogwash on their part, whatever that is. So it just seems to me like we need to get to a place where we can get work done, not have these type of constraints on, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying, you mentioned that this is gonna tie up somebody's bonding ability. That happens. You take on jobs, you use up all your bonding ability, and you can't move on to the next government job. That's what the private sector's for. A lot of times, the private sector's not out there looking for bonding, so you can work those kind of jobs. But I think that we do need to be careful in how we put this together, how we word our contracts, find a way to get these projects completed without having to have the citizens pay for the bonding, because typically the folks that don't have a lot of bonding ability are the ones that pay the most for the bonds. And we're talking 3.5%, sometimes 4 or 5% higher.
Sure.
That's gonna all get translated right into higher costs for the taxpayers at the end of the day.
Sure.
Okay, any more discussion? We got a proper motion on the floor, proper second?
May I just make a comment?
Mhm.
Would the board allow me to talk to Julianne about this until it comes back to the board with these final comments?
Yeah.
I don't have a problem.
I won't ask to make any decisions, just to talk to her and if she has any advice or guidance that I could give her. She's pretty smart on her own, but I mean, every now and then I can help her a little bit because her background is heavy finance and mine is in construction, and it's not always the same, so.
You okay with that, Julian?
I'm good.
Okay.
Call for
Okay,
question.
all in favor, indicate saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, we're gonna move down to continue the discussion on the bonds down to commissioner requests. So I'll start with Commissioner Harvey, on the bond discussion and action, performance, bid, and payment bonds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I brought this up to Julianne's attention, she said, if you're going to have the conversation about the bond on dirt roads, we need to have it on all bonds. And that's what you wanted to do. So let me turn it over to her, and she can kind of go with it from that point, okay? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So the question became, an MSBU aside, because obviously we've taken action on them, is it the board's desire to alleviate the bonding requirement for any project under the $200,000 threshold? Or does the board want to establish different types of projects that we would always require? Or does the board want to establish a lower minimum threshold? The state's threshold is 100,000. It does give counties the ability to go up to 200 before a bond is statutorily required. But while we're discussing bonds, just like we did on FDOT certifications, does the board desire to pick, or does the board want me to bring back options when we bring back these other options? So just general conversation, if we're gonna talk about bonds, the request was, let's talk about all bonds and all projects.
Julianne, just heard a minute ago that, I think it was Commissioner Rawls says, we're up to 250,000 with no bond. But that's not really true.
No.
Because based on,
No, DOT
No.
requirements.
That's FDOT certifications projects.
okay,
Yeah,
so we still have a cap at 200,000 regardless.
We do.
We can't pierce that. What's
well,
the-
and we are in some instances, many instances, requiring payment, performance, and bid bonds on lower threshold items as well. And so that becomes the question, what is the board's desire?
What's the statute? It says public works and what else?
Public construction,
Gave us a
Sorry.
few.
Just says public
the construction of a public building,
or public work, or
prosecution and completion of a public work, or for repairs upon the public building or public work. So repair and construction
It's
of public work or
Okay.
public construction.
All right, good, thank
Any
you.
capital project,
Okay, Commissioner
Yes.
Turner?
okay? To me, this is a whole different ballgame here. We've got a lot of projects, and I don't know that we want people bidding on $150,000 jobs. To Commissioner Rawls and myself, $150,000 job is something we don't a lot of times take because it's too small even. But I'm just telling you straight up that a lot of people in the county that would bid on that, if you didn't require a performance and payment bond, it'll be the biggest job they ever build in their life. That is not the kind of people that we want working for Putnam County, or the type of contractor. What the performance and payment and the bid bond does is it at least makes you be responsible enough to go to a bonding company, a surety company. In today's world, it's not that hard to get them. But you've got to be responsible enough to at least be able to go in there and get one of them and apply for them, because it's not something you fill out a paper and you get. The first one I got back in 1991 or whatever took me 3 months of damn hard work to get it. Now, I understand they've gotten easier since then, but back in them days, they even made you cash bond part of your project, way back then. I understand that's not as much used anymore. But the thing that I'm saying is we can set a threshold of where you need a bond at. But I think that any job that's a regular project, that's 50,000 or bigger, and a regular project, they should have to come up with a performance and payment bond. And in no circumstance should we ever ask for a performance and payment bond that we don't require a bid bond, because that's basically the bond company telling us that they will bond that job once you get it, if you get it. And anybody that said something like, oh, I'm having a hard time getting bid bonds and my bond company don't like that, that's crap. Because most companies bid 10 jobs before they get one, especially public work companies. They might get 10% of them. The companies that write their bond is used to writing them bid bonds. Back when we did a lot of public work 10, 12 years ago, it was not unusual for us to get 30 bid bonds a year. And the day that the bid bond opened, my bond company would be on the phone with us that afternoon and said, who was low bid? Can you send me the bid sheet? I'd like to see how, and if you were low bid, they'd say, I want to see the bid sheet now. Because if you left 35% on the table, somebody was coming to see you before they would write that bond. And so, I mean, it was, and it's still that way to some extent, I'm assuming, that if you leave a bunch of money on the table, your bonding company's gonna get real nervous about it. Because they're eventually on the line for it, if something happens. So I think that you can do the 5% deal, because I think that's also statute, and we can't do a thing about it. If you require a bid bond, you also have to allow them to do a 5%,
Bid bond.
about 5% cashier's check or whatever.
Which we have received.
In order to, in lieu of a bid bond, you still have to allow that. But most people that give you that, and I'd bet you my shoes on my feet, that most people that do that think that this is a bond, that once they get this job, they're gonna bebop on down to Mr. Insurance Agent on the corner, and he's gonna write them this bond if you give him some money. That is not what happened. And so the people can't furnish the bonds. In 90% of the instances, the people can end up furnishing the performance and payment bond unless it's a different situation that maybe they decided to bid it at last minute, so they went ahead and put in that or something like that instead of getting the bond. But like Commissioner Rawls said, I can't have one in a few seconds. I don't have the connections he's got, but I'll bet I could have one by 5 o'clock this afternoon. So, go ahead, Julie.
Can I ask one question? If we're gonna move forward, you listed a threshold of 50. Our procurement threshold is 65 for bids, which would
That
catch
would
the
be-
masses.
That would be fine
Would
with
you be
me
agreeable?
if that was fine with the other commissioners.
Okay, if we go there, I just would ask that you would raise that to 65, just to help contain the projects that we're gonna be collecting payment and performance bonds
I'm
on.
just trying to move this forward because we could talk about it for days. We could be here at the next commission meeting and not skip a day from now till then for all the different scenarios that we could come up with on performance and payment bonds. The only way that we can do this is try to come up with a way that will actually work, that's legal. 65 would be legal. It will allow your smaller contractors to do your smaller jobs, which this contractor believes we should do that. We should have the same language in our contracts as we do in our road contracts. If you don't perform, you're gone. And you're on some kind of list that you don't work for us for 2 more years or 3 or whatever language it is we put in there. Because every now and then, and I shouldn't say every now and then, on a fairly regular basis, you find competent contractors that can do $65,000 or $1,000 jobs, and do them well. And they will do them a little bit less money because they have a pickup truck and they work out of the garage and what have you, but they could still do a remodel job for $65,000 with their eyes closed. A lot of these guys work for people who do have bonds right now. So there are people out there that can do it at that level, but when you start getting up into the statutory bonding levels, they're fewer and far between. People realize that companies that are gonna bond something of that large are not gonna just turn around and sub the job out to one sub. Just not gonna happen. Not only that, if your bond company catches you, they're gonna kick you out of their bond company because they don't do single source bonds either. They want you to do at least 50% with more than one. So, or at least mine does. I don't know about Jeff's, but mine does that I have to perform at least 50% of all work with more than one sub. So anyhow, may I, to try to move this forward, if we're all pretty much on the same page here, could we do the same thing and ask procurement to come back to us again with a list of suggestions to try to get us to that point on this different issue?
I was gonna say, I think we're getting to the point where we need to send it and let Julianne and whatever staff, legal, look at this and bring it back to us at the same time. That'd be okay?
Yes.
Happy to.
I gotta,
Okay, we're gonna make a couple of comments before we get a motion. Okay, excuse me, Commissioner Rawls was next.
If the county was the contractor, if the county was the one actually being the responsible party, and they sub the work out via contract, is there a bond requirement at that point?
If it tripped the threshold, if the sub tripped the threshold, yes.
Think about that for a minute.
But that's the way it is, Jeff.
No,
Right, the
I'm
statute.
saying if we put a contract out in such a way that the county was the responsible party. So we are now the contractor, and we hired a subcontractor to perform under our contract. Would there be a bonding requirement?
All I can tell you is that when we built the jail, we did it as a construction manager. And we were required by statute to make every sub on that project, but it was
Right.
USDA UD money, RD money too. So it might be a little different. But we were required to make every sub on that job whose contract was over $200,000, give us a performance and payment bond on that project.
Okay, I've seen it both ways, where typically, the reason that the construction manager or the general contractor would require that is for back bonding, so it doesn't tie up the GC's bonding ability.
This one, it was RD requirement.
Okay.
US devel-
But, and then my other question is, what about having an irrevocable letter of credit in lieu of a bond? Is that possible in Florida?
Doesn't allow it in statute.
Does it disallow it, I guess, because federal government allows it? You can put a 25% irrevocable letter of credit, which you can cash in and claim a lot quicker than you can any kind of claim against a bond.
Yeah, but Jeff, and wouldn't you say, and I'm not being debative at all, just asking, wouldn't you say that if somebody in reality, that if somebody had the ability to write you a 25% check for you to hold, that they would go and get a bond?
I can tell you, I put up a $750,000 irrevocable letter of credit against a $3.2 million job in 2011 because I could not get a $3.2 million bond. But I was able to get somebody to put up a ILC. So it's just something else to think about.
Must not have been a government job.
It was, actually, it was Annie Spell Senior Committee working for the Palaca Housing Authority.
Wow.
So,
Or could we just send this to her?
Yep. Commissioner Harvey, then we're
Okay. Along those same lines, also, do we really want to hold retainage while we're having a performance and payment bond?
Yes,
That's a question.
Absolutely.
Why?
yes.
In my world.
You're not gonna get paid
my
by a
world,
bond
if you
company.
don't owe somebody no money, you ain't getting them to come back. That's
Yeah.
why.
Okay. Do what?
all right.
You'll never have a punch list done.
I get it.
No,
saying
no,
the
you gotta-
job- the job won't get
We've
finished
got
right,
that.
is what you're saying.
Terry's
we've
right, you
got
gotta
to hold
give them a reason to
retainage.
come
We've
back.
got to do that.
Yeah.
Okay,
So we hold a retainage and we ask them to bond 100%.
That's normal. That's every job you do.
Yes.
I'm just asking.
And not only that, we make the surety company give us a letter saying that they've done everything the surety company requires, which is get rid of all notice to owners and the different things that have to be done
To
before
get your
they'll
final
give us,
payment.
before the surety company
Right.
release it, and then we'll give them their 10%. But until they do all that and we get a letter from surety and everybody else, you ain't getting your last money, because that'll be the last we'll see out of 70% of any contractor on earth.
Just asking. All right, good.
okay. Do we need a motion to send this forward? We did the
So
other one.
moved.
No? This consensus? Okay, Mike, you got any comments on
No,
this?
no, not on this one, no.
Okay. All right, any more discussion on that? Okay, all right, we'll move up to A, Public Works bid award Saratoga Harbor, continuing drama of the drainage project discussion.
This is, we did bid it out one time, we came back, it was too high, we bid it out one more time, and then we
One
ended.
time, you mean one time since you've been here?
Yeah, yeah.
It's been going on for before I was a commissioner.
I don't know about that, but it's
Been
then-
going on a long time.
been going
I'm
long.
sorry, Mike. That's
No, you're
the
fine.
roads-
You're fine.
Way
getting
road or
close
something.
to 347.
And then, Julianne and we got in and we were able to do some value engineering. And so we were able to bring it down a little bit more. But the total cost was $183,000 total, for this project. And, what we need is about under $113,200 plus to award this contract to fix the weir here at the Saratoga Harbor.
Okay. And this has been going on for, I'd say, at least 3 years.
Longer than that.
It's prior to me,
I said at
prior to
least-
me getting here,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. How long you been here?
Almost 2 now.
2. It's been going for 4 years. So, Commissioner Harvey?
When you talk about value engineering, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for calling on me. Tell me the difference why you're gonna put sheet piling down or not put sheet piling down.
It was a different way to keep the water out of the weir where they're working at, and they believe that the sheet piling is cheaper than the way the contractor had it, or the designer had it laid out. So we went back to the contractor, say, hey, what's the savings here? So he gave us those savings in there if he did the sheet piling versus I wish I had it with me, but it was the way that it was designed to capture, to keep the water out of where they're working at. The sheet piling for them, it was cheaper to do that than the way that was designed originally.
So we'll save $94,000 by not doing that. Is that what you're saying?
But we'll have to add the temporarily diking and dewatering in order to
Right.
accomplish that task, so it's about a 46.
About 40.
About, yeah, we saved about $40-some thousand.
Okay. I'm good with it as long as everybody else, though.
Mr. Turner?
I don't know if I should ask you or ask our chairman or whatever. I wish, this is one of those situations that I really wish you could talk to somebody outside of this meeting on issues such as this. And with the risk of putting you on the spot here, Mr. Chairman, could you kind of, to the best of your recollection here, sitting here at this time, see where that came? Because I know that we had talked about possibly getting access through a different area for a different road, to where if this weir ever failed, they could just drive in that other road. Is that still an option, or is that not an option at this time, to go out a different road? Or, you know, for $183,000, it might be that we could just go on the other side of the weir and find out who owns that pasture between them and the highway, and just go around there and buy them a road and just build them a new road going around there. They won't get to drive over their pretty dam or their pretty weir, but it may be we could do that for half or a third of the money. Just buy them a new road.
Well, we did, as far as talking about the evacuation route, we did go out there the other day and talk to Dan Carter and some of the residents out there, and J.R. Grimes is gonna work with the adjacent property owner. There is a access road that has grown up pretty heavily with trees, but J.R.'s gonna work on the emergency evacuation plan. So we'd have 3. We'd have that one where we might have to move some trees out of the way to come in, or come in somebody's yard after we get off of the adjacent property owner's property. And then also you have air and also have water, where they could come in by boat or come in by helicopter. But this is, if I understand, this is the weir that's under the Gibbs Road dam,
Correct.
correct? And the reason we were going to do this in the first place is to protect our road.
Protect
Okay,
the road.
And then we got into discussions about, you know, applying for the money from the DEP, I guess, or whoever it was, to try to get all these studies done and things like that. But that's what this is. This is the main, one of the main entrance and exits to Saratoga Harbor. And it goes across it splits one of the two, I guess it actually splits the lagoon that comes in from the river and whatever that particular lake is.
Yeah, that
There's
first
2 of
lake.
them there.
But there's another entrance into it.
Yes, there's another way they can get in.
Well-
If we did nothing to this, but we promised them that we would fix this. It just happened to be 4 years ago.
Well, that's $60,000, but there was a lot of other options that were gonna come in at the same time when I don't remember, and I'm not saying we didn't promise, but I don't remember it like that. I remember it that it was, we were gonna try to come up with these issues, and that we had determined at that time that we only owned the right-of-way to the edge of the pavement, that we didn't own the sides of it any further out from the pavement. So basically, if we go in there and spend this $186,000, they're at 3 or whatever it is that they're asking us to spend today, how is that not working on somebody else's property? How
We-
is that not doing work on private property?
We have an easement for the weir. The road going across and the easement for the weir. And that, the weir is just their overflow, for that, for the thing, but we
When we
have.
looked at this last time, we determined that the only portion of that weir easement we had was from side to side of the pavement.
No, that's the
We didn't
pavement.
own the other.
We don't own
Didn't
this
have an
other.
easement for the other, because that's what kept us from doing it 4 years ago, was that we didn't have rights to go down there and do that between the water and the edge of the pavement, because we didn't own it,
We don't, generally speaking,
Didn't
to the
have-
whole side, we don't.
access.
We do for, if you're going from the road to the weir, we have that. But if you're doing the other side, or they're a part of that, that's not the weir system itself, we do not.
We don't
We
own
would need a
that.
TCE for that.
But this was
is-
actually agreed on and bid out 4 years ago. That's why it was so much less. And it was one of the ones that, Julian, correct me, the company, AWA, is one of those AWA bids. And you know what happened there, so we had to reject all those bids. And then COVID came and a lot of things came, and then here we are. We went through the discussions with them of who owned the dams and who didn't, and we've got that straightened out, that we're not taking ownership of those. But that's where this got started, that we agreed to fix this, but it was at that amount, there's no question about that. Any more questions, Commissioner Turner?
Yeah.
Sure, I'm gonna have some, but I wanna let Commissioner Adams
Okay,
go ahead.
Commissioner Adams.
So if this road didn't exist, they have access in another route today?
There's basically
Isn't there
one
another
major road coming in, Hamilton Road,
Right.
and it branches off, you can get to go two places. One is Gibbs Avenue, and one is Ketterer Causeway. They both have roads going into that subdivision. Then there's an emergency evacuation route, should either one of those weirs fail or those dams fail, then that's the emergency activation plan that we're working on
All right, let me ask
to
you,
get them
then,
out.
is there houses, if this was the collapse, and not be there anymore, is there people that couldn't get to their house outside of emergency evacuation? Or is the other road go back there?
The Gibbs Avenue, there is another way in.
There is
It's on
another way.
Ketterer
It's
Causeway is another way
Ketterer
in. Yeah.
Yeah, Ketterer Causeway. So, yeah, if this one failed,
If Gibbs Avenue dam failed, then it would be the Ketterer Causeway.
And that's a dam as well?
That is a earthen dam as well.
But then they would have the road that they looked into, or they're looking into now, if they're successful, correct? The one that's up there beside the next property owner that would take them out, somebody would
You'd
have
be-
to cut some pine trees and
you'd
fix
It would be,
you'd be going through somebody's, it's not a field. It was pretty heavily wooded
yeah.
to get there, but it's only like from here to the video booth. And then after that, I don't know how long it is and what route the property owners would allow us to have if they're gonna let us have it.
Correct.
But it would be a few miles. We wouldn't be building a road.
Yeah, not for that money.
Yeah.
No.
And I thought, and the reason I'm asking is I thought our concern was, and I'm remembering similar to what Commissioner Turner is saying, I thought our concern was if we did all this work on the road and stuff and the dam still failed, because we don't know how good the rest of the dam is, that the work is for naught, is in a way. So, I mean, doing the weir just gives you some pipes, but if the dam corrodes 10 yards before or after, and fails where the weir isn't, which is probably the more likely spot it's gonna fail, even with, no.
If we don't fix it, the weir will fail first. It's in bad shape.
And the study that they're getting from Tracy Woods, the work that's gonna be done, just explain exactly what that's gonna do.
No, that is an inundation study. What happens is if the earthen dam fails, what will be impacted should that happen. It doesn't give us a condition assessment of the dam. It just gives us what would happen should it fail.
Is that possible if she had extra money? There was another clause in there, or was that the E?
That was taken out.
Okay.
So all they're doing right now is an inundation study on what would happen should that dam fail.
So what would it take for us to look into the alternate road, building it, and see if we can get easements or whatever we need to do that? I agree.
I think it's just that will just probably be, we can look into it, but I believe it would just be temporary. It would be for emergency access only.
That's all I have, I guess.
I got a question for you. So the,
Excuse me, wait a minute. Yeah, he'll be next. Commissioner Turner was up first.
Okay, so, again, I'm trying to picture this in my head, and I don't have it all in there, but right on the, I guess it would be the east side of Saratoga Harbor subdivision, you got Hamilton Road coming on the north side of it, and it comes in from the east, and it comes around, and then it goes across these two earthen dams that gets in there to these houses. That earthen dam doesn't go all the way to Highway 309.
309.
309. It just stops right up there at the end of Saratoga Harbor. So, has anybody checked into what it would take to buy a road that's just to the east of Saratoga Harbor, to where someone, if both these dams failed, these earthen dams failed, and both the weirs failed, and it would be no more maintenance?
There you're talking
Yeah, yeah, across there, just go right back out to Hamilton Road.
That's
on the-
what we're gonna talk to Trednick about, because they own the property. See, the problem is, if I'm correct, there's another lake where we were standing up there. That's where the spring and the water comes in. So then you got Ketter Causeway, and you got a pond, and then you got another pond, you got Gibbs, right? So you got two different lakes, so you'd have to go out and around that lake but I think it'd be easier to go to Hamilton than it would be to go to 309, if the one person owns the property and allows us to do that.
No, I think it would be easier to go to 309, not back out to
Right.
Hamilton Road. I have to look at that again, but 309 would be, I think.
Before we just throw $183,000 at a project, because we're tired of talking about it, that we actually need to
I don't have a problem with that at all.
go use up every avenue that we possibly could to come up with an alternative way to fix this.
Okay, Commissioner Rawls?
is there a solution where you can go in, like when you say weir, I think of something that adjusts the height of a body of water. You can stack boards up, you can raise concrete, you can put metal in there, and it acts as a dam. The weir has an outfall. In the pictures, it looks like we're talking about the outfall portion of the weir, not the control structure itself. Is that correct?
No, it's a control structure. It is not the outfall. We're not doing anything
If
to
the
outfall.
control structure fails, how does that affect the outfall? I don't understand. I mean, your lake level will drop. I understand that. I mean, that happens on any pond that you have a weir that fails. But why are we concerned about the weir itself?
Currently, the weir is a bunch of sandbag or concrete sandbag head wall that's deteriorated very badly. And there's three metal pipes that go down and then go down into the outfall. Those pipes are in good shape.
Well, the pipes are the ones that go through the dam.
They go through the dam.
That's your outfall.
Correct.
The weir itself is what adjusts the height.
Correct.
So are we talking about the outfall pipes or the weir?
The weir itself.
The weir fails, you're gonna lose the lake height, the height of the water, the body of water. But you're not gonna wipe out the dam.
You could if it's an earth. It depends on where this water is going through. Is it going around the pipes? Is it going to saturate the earthen dam so that such that it caves in and falls in and washes away?
I'm confused because the weir is typically a structure that sits up above the water or right at the water's, the top of water.
Mm-hmm.
But you're now describing the pipes that go through the earth, and you're saying if it washes, same kind of issue you have going on over at Rodman with the dam, where earth is washing out around. Are we describing the outfall pipes, you're eroding and washing it around those?
It's, yeah, based on some pictures, that's part of the issue. And this thing's old, metal pipe that's in there. And so this was to fix all that stuff, reseal around the pipes, you know, get a proper water control, a weir, in place so that,
So
so
what
it
if,
doesn't wash out.
what if you utilize the services of a company like Florida Pipe Tech that goes in there and they line that pipe?
The pipe lining is not an issue. We had that camera, that was part of the contract. The pipe is in good shape. That's not the pipe.
So it's just the weir that attaches to the pipe, but that's on the lake side.
That is on the lake side, yes, sir.
And if it fails, you're going to lose the lake.
Not
You're
the
not
road.
going to lose the dam. The water level is going to drop to whatever level. I've dealt with this on a couple of ponds in the past, and that's why I'm perplexed. It doesn't present a life safety issue. It's
Around those metal pipes,
correct.
right? It's currently old concrete sandbag bags that are holding everything on the dam side or where it's dammed up against. So those are bad. We want to put concrete in there and seal up around those pipes really good on the outside. If it continues like this, you'll continue to wash out around the pipes, not inside the pipes, around them. Eventually, it's going to make its way out, and then it's going to weaken. It'll weaken the.
But
the
it'll
dam.
stop at whatever point the lake drops itself.
But it'll only drop to the bottom of those pipes.
Right.
Correct. You are correct. But there's constant inflow into that lake. It never stops, even when it's dry. There's a lot of water flowing into those upland lakes, what I call upland lakes.
Where'd it come from? They drained their houses in them?
No,
They got a-
no, it's
Evidently, there's a spring up top near where, when we went to look at the property where we would have the access to the property owner's property, they said that's where they called it Johnson Spring. It's
But it's-
continually flowing.
At some point, somebody built the dam. It's a dam, it's not a berm because it has a control structure.
correct.
They set the top of water. Who owns that? Why was that put there? What is the benefit to the general public?
From what I understand, this was put in I think it was in the
One of them said it was 18, in
18?
the late 1800s.
Yeah.
One of the
Not with
dams was there.
rebar.
I don't know if that was there, but
Right.
anyway.
But yeah, it's I don't know if anybody can really date when the dam was built.
But do we actually own that?
No,
It's a yes or no question. There you
No.
go.
We don't know the dam.
we don't own the dam.
Do we own the structure that,
I believe
We
it
got an
was,
easement to maintain the structure.
it was agreed on the board back 4 or so years ago, is to protect our road. It was in the best interest of the county to repair this wear. That's where we were, and we're just 4 years later and 4 times the amount of money.
I mean, this is just,
Might be that's the only way we could come around splitting MSBU in half to get what we wanted was that, well, we'll go ahead and repair this thing. Because if I remember right, they told us we couldn't work on it past the edge of that concrete unless we got some kind of a new easement or a new something that we didn't have at that time.
Right.
We do now have an easement for that
Who gave
weir.
it to us?
They did.
I bet they did. Yeah. I bet they did. I said, I'll tell you what, I got some property that I'll give you an easement across one end of. You come build me a brand new road, pave it, and put in a dam and a weir.
I'll give
When
you
did-
easement my
when did
yard,
we
you'll
get
mow
this
it.
easement? When did we get that easement?
I think it was before I got here. But
Okay. Jeff, you through right now?
Yeah, I'm counting the houses and there's only about 30 houses down there or less that are impacted. Is there any way that we could potentially set up an MSBU for them? So they maintain that in perpetuity and we just bite the bullet now and pay ourselves back when the MSBU is in place with that?
You're talking about repairing it? and then have them have an MSBU that would come back to us to eventually pay for it. I can talk to them about it.
Didn't they last time say that wasn't an option? I think we did talk MSBU last time, or time before last, or the time before that, and it just wasn't an option to the residents there to have an MSBU. They were gonna they wanted the county to pony up the funds.
I mean, that's a water feature that only benefits that small group of folks. No,
You're right.
can't get in it unless you live on it. There's no boat ramp to get to it, unless you got a model boat.
Okay, Commissioner Adamsack?
Yeah, I don't feel the weird part is our responsibility, but we didn't put it in. We didn't build it. Is it built to county specs? I mean, just like if we were taking over a road, is it built to the specs we would have had before we take it over? I mean, all those things, it just, I don't know. I wasn't really in favor of any of it before, and I don't think I've been swayed away from
Okay,
that now.
all right. Well, what I'll do is I'll get with, Mike and I will get with Dan Carter. We're gonna talk about the possibility of MSBU. And I'll talk to, we'll look at if it's easier, better for us to build a road. But I just know the conversation was, and then of why we did it, and I understand it's 4 times the amount. But also the county has accepted in roads and ditches and things that we deal with every single day that we didn't put in. This is one of the cases, and the reason we were gonna do this is protect the road that we maintain. That's what it was, so we'll just table this and we'll move forward with something else, and I'll bring it back hopefully the next transportation meeting. Mike, you think we can do that?
Sure. Then again, we might have to get I'm just saying, we might have to get an updated cost, because you guys all know costs go up all the time. And typically they're only good for 30 days.
Well, I think that some of the questions that have been asked today are very legitimate questions, especially when did we come up with this? Was it after because I didn't remember us having any of this, and then they wanted to give us easement to it, and then we didn't want easement to it. And that's when we decided we didn't own anything except from pavement side to pavement side. The rest of it belonged to somebody else. So we went and got an easement. Well, if we could throw $183,000 at this and be done with it once and for all, we're done. I think all we're doing is just cracking the faucet. Because then it's gonna be, where do you stop? When it starts leaking and we go in there and eject or pour concrete around these pipes, if it's leaking there now, it's gonna leak there again unless you put up something down there on the end that's gonna prevent it from happening. So unless they have a heck of a seal out there on the end of that seawall right where that pipe goes through, it's still gonna leak through there. So 5 years from now, there's gonna be another $183,000 that somebody's got to pony up and come up with. So if this was one of them instances where we could write a check and we're done, one and done, and that's it, but I don't think that's the case. I believe it's gonna be a case where you go in there and all you did was just start the problem and took ownership. And then from now on, they're not even gonna try to come up with something else. They're just gonna say, okay, your weir and dam's broke again, go put another $183,000 in it. Next time it might be, because if I remember right, and my memory's terrible anymore, but if I remember right, when this started years ago, it was like $360,000, and that was old dollars. Because we were gonna have to do some digging and all kinds of different things to make this thing stabilize. So we've toned it down over a period of years to the point, but I don't think this is a permanent fix to go in there and eject, grout, or do whatever y'all are talking about doing. So I just think we need to look at it a little more.
Okay, we'll look at it some more and bring it back, next transportation meeting, so.
If I could say one thing real quick. Commissioner Turner's right. If you take a look at Lake Okeechobee and the issues they've had with that in the past, the Army Corps of Engineers had to develop a system where they actually took the equivalent of a massive chainsaw, stuck it in the earth, and went around the berms, so they could inject concrete down in to where it would get below the bottom of the lake to keep that from happening. It's just going to continue. You know, man cannot build something that nature will not take back eventually.
Okay. All right, we'll move down to C, Public Works on MSBU discussions.
We already did that, didn't we?
Well, this one's a slightly different one.
Right, it's slightly, yeah, that one's depleting funds.
Okay.
Yeah, we bid out all the MSBU's again this year, and a new fee schedule is based on the minimum standard we wanted to grade or do work for each MSBU. And there are 3 of them specifically that their current rate they're paying and the new rate based on the prices we got back are substantially different. That's that second page. The Costa Creek, went from $110 a year per parcel to $517 a year per parcel. And the St. Johns River Estates went from $78 to $302 a year per parcel. And then St. Johns Harbor Unit 3,
Did you say St. John's River Estates?
St. Johns River's Estates. And then St. Johns Harbor Unit number 3 went from $35 to $238 per parcel that they had to pay every year.
Where is St. John's River Estates in Satsuma or off of Buffalo Bluff Road? That's an MSBU.
Yes.
Inside the development? Okay, I'm working on one that's, okay, that's okay, I got you. Okay, all right, that's different.
Let's go in order, so Mike, you'll make
So-
comments on over for questions when you're done.
Yeah, so what this is a lot of them right now, because they were still getting funding last year based on the current rate, what we call the current rate. When we put these new MSBs in effect, they're charging more because this hasn't been bid out in 15 years, and so obviously costs went up, but their rate never went up. So this year, this gap year, they're going to get reduced service because the MSBU can't afford the new rate structure based on the amount of fees that were collected in this last tax year. So what we wanted to discuss was what do we do? Do we just reduce the level of service? One of them is effectively done this year. They can't do any more work for the most part, just because the costs go up. Those are normally the outliers out there, and it takes a lot to mobilize to get out to these sites. So there are some challenges with specifically these 3 MSBUs.
Okay, Commissioner Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I ask Nilda to come up? Bring your phone with you, bud. Yeah, I know. Acosta Creek, how many miles is that?
Like 0.8.
1.6?
Say about a half, that's not
0.6.
long.
And St. John's River Estates,
4.3,
and then St. John's Harbor is 3 something?
no, about 4.3 also.
3 point?
4.3.
4.3. We were in talks with the developer down there in Acosta Creek who's buying up a lot of property. I'm not so sure that they just wouldn't take over maintenance of these roads versus paying that high cost, number one. The other ones, I know that they hadn't been bid out in a many 20 years, whatever the case may be. And they're so far out that economy to scale, it just wasn't worth these contractors who were bidding to drive all the way around. And then the work that they had to do once they got there, or if they had to go back and do other work. And it was, I mean, I hate to say some of them were just glad to get rid of them, but they were. They really were. So when does an MSBU just make sense that it's not an MSBU anymore? And because these prices are just astronomical to ask somebody to do. I can see going up 20%, 10%, I get that. But when you start talking about this, what's the solution for St. John's Harbor? Do they just go, because right now the solution is we can't do nothing until October 1, until we get money coming in. That's not a solution. So at the end of the day, if I understand the contracts correctly, those fall back on the county, if I'm not mistaken. Any work that has to be done falls back on the county. So when do we just go, enough's enough? We can't do anymore.
think that depends on the commissioners. You know, we can give you advice, or we can say, look, we could look at the numbers and do that. But what, you know, when does it not make sense to have an MSBU anymore?
Well, Mike, you and I talked, and I'm not putting words in your mouth. If I say something wrong, please correct me. At one time, you had figured out you were at about $160 to $180 a mile for Public Works to grade, right?
Yeah, it was like a year ago, or I think.
Yeah, about a
like that,
year
but yeah.
ago. So that might be a little different now, but even at that cost, even if the county took it over, it's not that much money compared to what we're trying to charge these people right here. Now, I'm the one that pushed for all fairness and everything alike, but truly, when the bids came in, this is pretty dramatic here.
Oh, it's a big, it's a big difference. I mean, $400 a year for each parcel up in Costa Creek,
So
or down
is-
in Costa Creek.
And in all fairness, I don't believe the people, when we started the MSBU's, you know, it was really for us to get more service and to augment what the county wasn't doing. And what happened was, when the MSBU's got passed, the county left and took their equipment. And I can't say I disagree with that concept, because I really don't. I think it was beneficial for us for many years out where I live. But there's got to be a time where we go, this isn't in county, because we're starting to pave roads inside of MSBU's. We're starting to alleviate, we're paving more roads, less grading for the county. There might be a way that you say, I'm going to be out in that area anyway, and at 168 or 180 or $200 a mile, I can pick up these roads for very minimal cost at that point.
I mean, another option might be is that instead of a maintenance MSBU, is talk to them about, because you're talking, was it 4.5 miles, 4.5 miles, and another 0.6, 0.8, going to a pavement MSBU, and then it's, you know, over 15 years or 10 years or however they want to do it. Then they got a paved road, and then they're done. That's an option. I'm just saying that's an option out there, is to make that a paving MSBU and get those roads paved. And I don't know what their cost would be over and above the increased amount, the new rate here, based on paving those roads, but that's an option we can look at.
I'm done, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Turner?
Okay, I understand people being upset over these pricings, but have you been to the grocery store lately and saw what things cost? Have you been to, well, the construction business is that times 3. Telling you right now, I bid a house the other day that I swear I could have built 2/3 of that price a year and a half ago. So I believe that's what's going on right now.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, I'm assuming that each one of these has an MSBU committee that we could go to.
No.
They don't?
Out of those 3, there's actually only 2 active currently.
Okay. Well, out of that top one, so it's not $517 a month, it's $517 a year?
Yes, sir, annually.
And for $517 a year, we're not giving them the services that, or they're saying they're not gonna pay that?
No. This hasn't been presented to them. These were just ones that were questioned because it will deplete their funds. Once this new fee assessment is basically implemented, it's going to basically deplete all their funds.
Okay, so basically, one would be 302, 283 a year, not a month, but a year.
Correct,
And they get full MSBU services at what we project the level would be?
correct.
Really? And what are we worried about? I mean, has anybody went out and bought gas lately compared to 2 years ago?
I think what you're talking about is if it will deplete the funds of the current
Not
money,
if they
money,
use these
money,
new rates.
money that was put in. It's going to deplete that unless you up their rates.
Correct.
I think you need to go to each MSBU and say, hey, look,
I can meet
I
with
agree.
these are the options. You need to pay it, or
Yeah, you don't want MSBU anymore, you wanna drive around on potholes and not have your roads fixed? I mean, that's not an option, I'm being facetious, I don't mean to, I apologize.
No, you're fine.
because MSBU's are definitely a very important part of what we do in this county, there's no doubt about it, but, I understand, but if we went to the new rate at $517 on the first one and what the other two are, that's per year, and they can pay it over a period of the months if they wanted to, or they can pay it because Linda Myers said earlier today, they can pay it on monthly payments. Quarterly payments, so quarterly payments. If that's hurting somebody to a degree that they can't pay $517 for a lot on a quarterly payment, then maybe we could come up with a little monthly payment for them, and we'd send her the check on a quarterly basis. I knew it. Look at there. Fire came out of the bookkeeper's eye.
Doesn't even have a smile.
That'd be a booger bear to track, that's for sure. So, but really, I mean, we're talking about gasoline that's doubled in a year and a half.
And I'm not so sure it's them saying they don't want to pay this. It's this gap year that we currently are in right now. We've got the taxes that were based on the current rate.
Right.
So, or their fees are based on a current rate. And
So it would be the next tax year, because we're basically, okay, now,
Yeah.
sorry, my apologies,
Yeah.
I misunderstood.
Right.
What you're telling me, they're out of money for this year.
They're gonna
Yes.
have to
Because
default.
we should have charged them more last year.
But,
So,
right, we're in the,
okay, so how much is this shortfall?
Well, St. John's Harbor, they've pretty much
They're
depleted
out of
all their
money.
funds already this year.
That ain't what I asked, Nilda. How many dollars? Like $9,231. How many dollars are we gonna need to make these MSBU's whole to move them forward?
I'd have to come back to you with those numbers.
Well, I
we
think
can-
that's
we
the
can get
most
that.
pertinent answer, because if we're talking about, if this one for $517 is only 20.26 miles long, and with, Costa Creek just sold to the Morris people, might be a Costa Creek would like to have their road back instead of paying $517 a lot in there. We could give them that option, by all means. So there's other ways to look, but I got to know how much money we're spending. But if there's 13 lots, we can make Costa Creek's problem go away for $517.73 a lot
Less
on,
less than that.
huh?
You're only talking 2 quarters.
I understand, but I'm saying if we could even do it for that amount of money.
It'd be half
And
that.
do it, okay, for half that. So for $260 a year, we can go in there and make this go away, and there's 20 lots, we're talking 40,
$5,000, but
yeah, you're just not talking about enough money, and then we'll just make sure and make them whole next year and move forward, we'll be good to go. I thought we had that conversation, Larry. We just didn't have it early enough.
Chairman,
Yeah,
can I?
answer, yeah. Then we'll go to
We did
Commissioner
have it
Hall.
early enough, but we did have we had a hiccup on that. And you would still have to go out there and send notices to all these people, first-class mail, of what that rate's going to be, and it has to be done very soon, right?
I need a date very soon from
I'm
them.
sorry?
Yes, I'm gonna need a date for the public hearing here within the next month.
Yeah, see, and go ahead and tell them what, Justin, we couldn't do the tax thing again this time for, there was a,
The mailouts are gonna have to be done by our department.
right,
Which is
right.
over 20,000 mailouts that will have to be done, because the tax trim notice is a generic letter.
Right,
And
it's
these
not
have to be
specific.
specific to each MSBU, because there's specific amounts for each one.
Sure.
So they're not gonna be able to facilitate those mailouts for us.
So we can't even go up if we wanted to, is that what you're saying?
We can, we just have to send first-class mail to all the people that are affected by, just like if we wanted to split an MSBU, we would have to send out new public hearings,
Boundaries.
mailing to everybody that we're going to redefine the boundaries. There's a lot of work that it needs to be done. And who's gonna mail out 20,000? You can't do that. I mean, you heard the horror
we
stories.
have to, we don't have a choice.
Yeah.
We will get it done.
Well, no,
You still got the floor.
yeah,
And you don't
okay,
even
so.
budgeted for it. You don't even have the money budgeted for to mail out.
Well, that's my point, is that if we spend all the money on the new rate on mailers and all that kind of stuff, we haven't done anything but send a bunch of mailers.
That's all we did.
I think the first thing we need to do is talk to the committees. Which two don't have which one doesn't have a committee anymore?
St. John's River Estates does not, but St. John's Harbor Unit 3 have already voiced their opinion on the new rate, and they
Oh,
are in
I'm
the
sure they
process.
have. They were
They're in
probably
the-
upset because it went up at all.
Well, we're in the process of getting petition letters back for them, so I'll have a percentage at the next transportation meeting to present to you guys for that.
Well, the whole premise of an MSBU, and
Pavement,
you're
yeah.
much more of an expert on this than I am, Commissioner, that's why I'm looking at you. I have two, I think, in my whole district. You have like two that's not in your district, so,
Well, 5 maybe.
yeah, so I'm being a little facetious, I apologize. But
6.
I guess my point being here is that if they don't want to do it anymore, then you just say, okay, fine, you disband the MSBU, and then they either live without paved road or without, maintained roads. I mean, right? Because right now they maintain the roads with MSBU money.
Well, I
So
don't
if they
think
don't
that
want to be in an MSBU any longer, then they
Yeah, but I don't think you just cut them off because they're still county maintained roads, and we have a fiduciary responsibility to take care of roads. So,
class two though, aren't they?
no, these roads
In
are,
order to be a MSBU road, I believe they need to be Class 1 roads.
yeah, these are, you're taking over maintenance at that point.
I got a question.
Okay, Commissioner Adamsack is
I
next.
guess
but-
that's where I was going is, didn't they come from being private roads to MSBU roads?
No, they're county roads.
They just
So they
wanted
were
they wanted
county
more
roads?
service.
They're county
So
dedicated.
they were county roads before they became MSBU roads?
Yes, they were,
Why would anyone choose to go MSBU from?
because we weren't getting services.
Oh.
They
We were
wanted more
getting-
services
Grade them
than-
often enough.
We were
to see
getting
I
grading
gotcha.
once a quarter. People were dragging bed springs. When I first ran for county commissioner, the motto was to drive, every county vehicle should have a pair of bed springs underneath it and drop when they hit a dirt road. That's how bad it was, Commissioner.
Yep.
And truly, if we didn't have that, we would have been in a mess.
I'll say this, if the rate for my road was $5.17 per house, I would pay it all day over my private road. I get it. I just spent $2,500 in doing 50 yards at the end of our road.
I'm with you, I'd pay it too,
I
'cause
mean, it was just,
I was lucky enough to have
that's
some
like the
leftover
fifth
asphalt. I got
project
my
we
neighbor
did
to
in a
spray.
half mile. And we're well over 20 grand in 5 years. And there's 4 of us sharing that, and really only 2 of us are paying into it. I think it's still a blessing, but that's just my opinion.
Okay, Commissioner Rollins?
So I think part of the difference is you live on a private drive.
Sure.
What we're, and I'm just gonna speak about St. John's Harbor. I know that Tony's here. These folks are aggravated for a lot of different reasons.
Oh, I know.
They've gotten the runaround from Putnam County government for years. They've gotten multiple answers to the same question. Right now, they're out of money. They pay gas tax, but the gas taxes don't go to improve the roads, but they pay the additional money. Now, at the last meeting, I was very vocal, and I made it very clear to them that anyone that was sitting in the room that thought, or there was no one in the room that would ever try to convince me that they thought for the past 10 or 15 years, paying the same amount of money, something wasn't wrong with that. The price of poker goes up every year. Last year, this year is a lot more painful than we've had in quite a long time, and it looks like it's stuck. So they have a decision to make. I don't know why we could not help them out between now and the end of the year, seeing as how there are a lot of people that living on those roads that are driving vehicles that are paying gas taxes that could be helping to improve their roads, but they've been helping themselves. So for this one instance, I would request that we take a look at getting these MSBU's by until October. I know that these folks at St. John's Harbor are currently looking at a paving MSBU. When I was talking with Tony earlier, part of the frustration was there was no numbers given. And I honestly thought when the letter went out, there was going to have numbers on there because that's what we discussed. You have a case scenario. If this number, thank you, if this number sticks, it can be paid for this. And on a 20-year basis, this would be your estimated payback. That didn't happen. The concern now is that people may get this generic letter and go, I don't know what it's going to cost. I'm not going to vote yes for something I don't know.
No, I believe that what we did is, now I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is what the discussion was. We would send out that letter saying, are you interested in an MSBU? Without costs. And then, once we got those back, and it was 50 plus 1, then we would say, okay, now we're gonna go back to commission, and we'll say, it's gonna, we believe it's gonna cost this. 'Cause
Oh, my fear, and I share the same concern with Tony, is that if enough people look at that and go, until I know what the answer of it is, I'm not gonna say yes, and they send back a no. So is it possible for us to send another letter out? Do we have enough time between now and when we need to send them out to get this thing moving forward, if that's the case? Because I, for one, wouldn't sign up for an unknown quantity. I would want to know what my potential capital outlay might be.
And I get it, but if they say yes or no, it doesn't commit anybody to anything at any time. I mean, it doesn't.
I understand that, but if the board is looking, right now, I can tell you right now, this board could impose the MSBU paved or unpaved on that, and it's a done deal. But we're looking for direction from the citizens that live out there. They need as much useful information as they can get. And I can tell you that the first meeting that I went out to, and Matt Reynolds went out there, he misspoke, he miscalculated some numbers, and I caught it at the meeting, but those folks wanted blood at that point. They were really furious at the proposed cost. And then we realized it was just a fat finger mistake. Same thing now. They're upset because nobody's been telling them all along, we need to be looking at increasing. So this thing goes from $30 to $230. That's a huge bump. It's a seven times multiplier. And just on principle, if I'm looking at a 600% increase in something, we're complaining about a 100% increase in gas. What about a 600% increase in what you pay? And then on top of that, they have trees in right-of-ways. Their roads aren't passable in some circumstances. I can only imagine what this 7 inches of rain looked like in Boswick that we had last week. So I think I would propose that we do whatever we can do to get these MSBU's by between now and September 30th, knowing that they'll have increases in revenue, I'm assuming. But if the citizens get their back up and say, we're not paying anymore, then what? We need their participation right now, because you don't have the manpower or the equipment to pick up an additional 15 or 20 miles of roads right now.
You answered my question. You're shaking your head. What's the impact if they start turning these things in? You can't take care of them, can you?
Not like they're taken care of via MSBU. Can't do it.
And
Yeah, but the average road doesn't
Right.
get taken care of that anyway. But that's why they pay extra, so. Okay. Commissioner Adams,
Yeah, and I think that
next.
we're mixing two conversations here in a way. I think making them whole, I feel like we should do that. I think that's separate from understanding how we move forward in future years. I think we already had that conversation. I think Nilda's gonna get us that number
Right.
for each one of these three. And I think once we have that number, that's when we have to make that decision. But these aren't the bigger ones, so the number is gonna be around less than 100 grand for all three of them, just from what I remember from what the total number is.
If I could answer that question real quick, if we had something in there that said a 3 to 5% average increase per year should be expected, so the citizens aren't caught off guard, 20 years later, you don't have this.
And sir, that's,
But I think we're putting them out to bid every year now, right? That was
No.
the-
no, but the language in the new ordinance is coming out that says we can index them. That was not in there before.
Right.
And so that's what Nilda's been working on. We couldn't do that in the past. And, 12 years ago, when these things were established, they just kept taking, they didn't bid it out. They just said, can you do the same work for the same cost? Can you do the same work for the same cost? Obviously, they can, but and gradually, the level of service has gone down because their costs have gone up. So 12 years later, you have a 600% increase. It is what it is.
Paul?
So I'll just voice my opinion. I would feel much more comfortable spending $100,000 on this than a weir. Let's put it that way.
Okay, but Nilda, you're gonna get us figures on these. The other MSBU's, they're okay? They're in good shape? Why are they in good shape?
Actually, the only out of these 3 that are listed here, there's only 1 that's deficient right now. The other 2 have a reserve that will take them through probably the whole year, sir.
Can
It
I
was
guess
just a
which one
matter-
is?
How did the one get into that particular point?
They don't, if you look at what the cost is for grading right now and what they actually bring in total times their unit assessments, they just break even with the current cost for grading alone, $15,000. So this particular MSBU, St. John's Harbor Unit Number 3, they literally bring $15,000 in a year, which is what the cost was for 3 to 4 months of grading on the new bids.
She just hadn't caught up pace, that's the
Correct.
problem there, okay?
The
Commissioner-
economy caught up to them.
Yeah,
So we're really only talking like 40 or 50,000 then?
you're next. Commissioner Turner?
So 2 of these 3 have reserves. Why are we even talking about them today? We're gonna move them forward and we're gonna make them pay the more money.
Because there was such a substantial increase from the
Okay.
current. That's the reason why we
Okay.
brought the 3 together back to
But,
you.
so you're asking us, do we wanna increase them for next year?
Correct.
Okay, this commissioner says yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think you
Okay.
have to.
Yeah.
There's no option.
But do we have to adjust, do we have to fix the ordinance first?
That's actually already went to legal and is ready to go once I get a public hearing date.
Okay,
So then that's automatic once we pass that. There you go.
No.
No, but, all right, Commissioner Turner's got the floor. Commissioner Turner's got the floor.
But wait.
I think we need to be very careful while we're doing this, that we don't set the wrong precedents, or next thing you know, every one of those MSBU's are gonna come in here and say, well, I don't care if it's $3 a year, I'm not gonna do it. If it's a $3 increase, I'm glad we do have an index in there now where we can just raise them up from now on. I thought that was part of Larry's discussion from last year, and so, or Commissioner Harvey's, my apologies.
You're fine.
And so, I think we got these things going in the right direction. It's just a matter of these 3, and it sounds to me like they already have enough money to get us through there, except one. And so that one that doesn't have the money, we may have to help it get through the year. But like I said, we got to be very careful, because we'll set precedents for the future where, well, you helped them when they ran out of money. How come you're not doing that? So if anything, we might even look somewhat into reducing services as much as we're helping, at least to some point, where we're not just doling out because a mistake was made that we didn't charge them enough. So I need to know, before I can go any further with anything, I need to know not how much per lot, but I need to know how much it is total for these, because you just said that on 2 of these, we don't really need any money. All we need is the permission to go up.
Correct.
Well, you want a motion to go up, or how do you want to handle that? I don't care, but I'll do whatever we need to do,
Do you
because
want-
definitely I believe we need to go up.
Okay, so do you want me to move forward on all of them except for Harbor? Or do you want me to wait until y'all make a decision on Harbor when I come back with an amount?
That's the one we don't have enough money. Okay? On the one we don't have enough money, I got to know how much that is I'm spending. It can't be so much per lot. I don't know how many lots there are.
How much
I'll
is it
do
per
the math
month?
for you if you need me to.
You can still adjust the fee to what it needs to be.
Yes, you can still adjust the fee.
Right.
Absolutely. Adjust your fees, do what you need to
Right.
do.
'Cause this-
But as far as getting them through this year, 2 of them don't need our help. The other one needs our help before I'm gonna vote on how much help to get them or to reduce services. I need to know how much money we're talking about spending.
Okay.
Am I the only one here that feels like that?
Oh, how much is it per month for St. John's Harbor?
For total for services?
Mhm.
Roughly like 5.
5,000? You got $25,000, it sounds like, don't need help with.
Commissioner
That's
Harvey?
just grading though. That's just
So
grading.
mowing
That's
or.
not mowing,
All right,
that's not.
Commissioner Harvey's now got the floor,
We'll come
guys.
up with it, we'll come up with a good
No,
number
I
for
was
you.
done,
I
excuse
thought
me.
you were done.
Oh, I had my light on.
I am now.
I had my light on.
Okay. All right, let's go to Commissioner Harvey and then,
I'm not done yet.
and then Commissioner, or we'll go to Commissioner Rawls and then Commissioner Harvey. How
All
about
right,
that?
so regarding St. John's Harbor, they have indicated a desire to go to a paving MSBU depending on what the cost is going to be. So I think we really need to, I understand if you move them up and they go to paving, that's going to be a moot point. But you know, Tony just got up and left. He looked like he was really upset. We really need to get these folks answers. I'm not speaking for them. I'm just paraphrasing what I'm hearing. But what I'm hearing from them is they feel like we're asleep at the wheel. They hold us accountable for things that have been going on for years before I got elected. So we're all going to be put in that same pot. And I really believe that they're correct in holding us accountable because this is Putnam County government, and that's who's they've been having this conversation with all these years. So if we can get them that as fast as possible, let them know that we will be helping them out between now and October when needed, or whatever else is needed.
Is that the one that's short, that doesn't have reserves?
And it's got a
I
bunch
didn't
of people.
Do what?
It's got a bunch of people that live
No,
there.
but I didn't vote that we help them out. I voted that I got to know how much money
Yeah,
that is
it's gonna be
before I
about
say
25,
we're gonna help
about
'em out.
25,000 to grade it. What about material?
We have to come up, we have to come up with that. We don't have-
Well, if
we
we had
can't,
this
we
whole,
can't
if
do
we
that.
had this whole discussion and fight this afternoon over $25,000, we need to change our priorities.
Oh, it's less than 50,000 easily. We're only talking 5-6 months.
Can we make a motion not to exceed 50,000 or something? and just
Let's
let
get the
them-
figures, let's get the
numbers
figures and
first.
come back.
They got money to last a while, and they've got the direction they want to go ahead and raise them up. So, I mean, that's the only thing they really
I
needed
thought that one
today.
was out of money.
It is.
That one's out of money today. There's no more gradings happening.
That's correct.
They have 1 week's worth of grading left.
No, they don't.
$1,400 is what he said.
And it costs $5 for grading, so.
5,000 a month.
Not per month or per
Mr.
bid?
Chairman, I move that we spend
wait, wait.
$20,000
How
towards this. What way, what are you
Wait.
shaking your hand for, Julie? Or your head for?
Yeah.
Get the numbers first?
I think we ought to get the numbers first.
Okay. We'll get the numbers first.
Bring them back to the workshop in April. Can you do that? Is that fast enough? I mean, can you do it at that time?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Harvey?
All right, I want to clear the air on a few things. First of all, I think Costa Creek, that's not in trouble, but I think conversation solves that problem, and that one goes away.
Oh, yes,
Huh?
yes.
Yes.
Try to, yes.
St. John's Harbor, I don't know much about St. John's River Estates, but St. John's Harbor, Commissioner Rawls, you mentioned accountability on that. We have MSBU roads out in West Putnam that can't afford to put down certain materials. And they chose not to do that because it would be unfair for one road to get lime rocked and the other road to get gumbo clay, for example. I'm just going to say that. This area chose to do that. They chose not to mow. They chose to do things, which I don't blame them. They're a citizens committee based on themselves. They can do what they want to do. But some of that happened under that watch. There was no mechanism to raise the premium up over the years. We learned that. We've been trying to solve that problem. We've been told this and went to that, and we're going to get there. It's just taking us, we're going to crawl like a baby before we can walk. So we're going to get there. And then when we get there, we're going to be in a whole lot better shape than what we are. But we've also talked about in the past paving roads inside the MSBU, and we're doing that. Okay, we are doing that because people do pay the gas tax, they do pay the sales tax. So maybe this is one of those great pilot projects. Because I mentioned this back when I was an insurance agent and they bonded all the money. I said, why don't you just let us partner with you at 50%? You know, then with the money goes a lot further, goes double, if you will. So I think that's what we need to look at too, is maybe it can't happen in West Putnam MSBU. We know that. There's not enough money. It would take years of our budget to ever make that happen. Ain't gonna happen. But some of these smaller ones where we could say, we'll put in $1 million if you'll put in, and then that's over with. Because then we end the conversation and we do the right thing by the citizens out there. And that's what I'm thinking we should look at that number too. Because I don't know what that is. Maybe it's in the year 2024 that we can go out there and pave. And we commit to that. People, they understand that. They get that. And I think that's where we've come a long way with MSBUs, but we're not there yet. And you still got mailings that have to go out now about those three. So I would call Costa Creek very soon, get on the phone with them, Commissioner Pickens in that district, get on the, I know what they're gonna say, believe me, I know what they're gonna do. And start looking at what other alternatives we have. Thank you, Chairman.
Commissioner Adamczyk?
I guess what I'm gonna say is similar to what Commissioner Harvey is saying. I definitely think we need to get this one MSBU through the year. That makes total sense to me. The number is what we need. We'll have that number in April. From the sounds of it, we're gonna get it done for you to have it this year. The paving MSBU's moving forward. That other conversation you're talking about, I mean, that's supposed to be on the agenda coming up, that was proposed as a commissioner agenda item. Because I think we need to talk about it even a little more deeper on how we do, if we share 25% or we share, it should be somewhat, the commissioner and the district should kind of guide that a little bit, in my opinion. And that way, and it should come out of my dirt to pave if it's in my area. Like for instance, Lady Slipper would be, if I knew we could do that, I probably would have put that on my dirt to pave this year, to do that first section coming down the hill to the left. I mean, I think, is that road reopened yet? So it's just reopened in the last couple of days. So I mean, we had to close roads in some of the MSPUs out there. It's not where they were completely impassable. So I understand your concerns, but we have roads in MSPUs that when it rains, they get closed. So that's happening. Maybe it's happening out in West Putnam or in other places, but it's happening regularly. It happens all the time. But I love the idea of getting there. So I just wanted to second that idea that we need to have that conversation sooner or later. Because if we have that conversation, we agree on a way forward for that, I will be changing my dirt to pave list for next year at the next one available.
Okay. Commissioner Turner?
Okay, I just want to go ahead and be the elephant in the room here. Some of these problems, they can blame me all the hell they want, but it ain't my fault. Right. They made these decisions for the last 20 years that they'd rather pay less per year and not do the things they want to do. And then the new committee comes in and says, whoop, we want to change our mind. We want to now have all these other things. We want to mow more. We want to have more grading done. And our MSBU short, we think you ought to pay for it. Well, tough. I probably won't get another vote on the other side of Dunn's Creek. I mean, on the other side of Rice Creek. But the problem here is just that. These decisions were made methodically by their committees over a period of time. And because they made poor decisions in the past doesn't make this commissioner responsible for those poor decisions that they made in the past. We have MSBUs in this county, Nilda just said, that they ran out of money, but they had enough reserves to keep them going for the rest of this year. They don't even have to pay anymore because they made the decision somewhere in the past to be physically responsible to the citizens in their MSBU. So I'm all for helping the citizens. I'm not trying to be hard-hearted in any way, but by the so, don't blame me for your bad decisions. That just doesn't work, not at my house. So anyhow, that's the way I feel, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Rawls, and we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, so just for clarity here, part of their frustration stems from the fact that the rules have been laid and changed. When the first meeting I went to, they were told at that time under Stacy Manning that a non-returned letter was considered a yes vote. They were told that 51% had to vote yes. Now they're being told that no one has to vote at all, that this commission can impose this MSB, and we can. My understanding is that in previous commissions, they wanted 50 or 60% participation before they would go out there and impose anything on the MSBU. But you're right, they have their own committee, they've made decisions in the past, but I know for 3 years, this committee has been working with Public Works and having to jump through different hoops. Every time there's a different leadership at Public Works, the conversation changes. That's their frustration. So they just want to get this thing moving forward. They want to see what it's going to cost. They want a pavement MSBU if it's going to be cost viable. And then we've discussed a 50% cost share. They're aware of that. They're looking forward to that if that's the commission's direction. And think of what it does for us. We get 4 more miles of paved roads. Housing prices go up, more taxes collected, blah, blah, blah. So
That's it, we're good. Okay, is that it? All right,
Yeah.
so, okay, Mike?
I got one thing real quick. Based on the new cost, because every MSBU got new costs, right? So I have to send out letters to every MSBU participant, every parcel out there. And so what we need to do is we need to set a public hearing date. And so we would prefer July 12th as a public hearing date for that, which means we have 20 days prior to that, we have to send out the letters.
No, that would be when we would actually come in here. I have to go and send out all those letters, do my advertisement, and we're making sure July 12th is a good date for you guys.
What day of the week is that?
We have a BOCC meeting that day.
Yeah.
I think it's a meeting day.
Well,
Yes, sir.
can we have that big of a public hearing? I mean, we liable to have thousands of people show up to that. Right? Or no, am I not?
I've never done one of these. I
Yeah.
don't know if Commissioner Harvey can speak to that, if he's ever been to a public hearing for MSBU.
If you tell everybody they're gonna raise their dues, it's gonna look worse than the Second Amendment sanctuary.
Maybe should we do it on a Thursday night, the first Thursday of the month?
Okay, you give me direction,
Or
I just
during
don't know
the-
when to put it
yeah,
in the letter.
I think you
Not
need,
all going up, though. Not all of them are increasing in price, some actually. are
Well,
going down.
they all have to get new letters. The pricing changed.
you
so they all
you
have to
do
get
what
letters.
you need to do, I'll be there if I can possibly get there.
Just
Is it okay
schedule.
if we get with Commissioner Suggs to hammer out a date? Is that
Yes.
okay?
Administrator Suggs, yeah.
Yeah, and keep
It's
your
like
keep your
Commissioner.
chairman, keep your chairman in your loop.
Sorry.
Keep your chairman in your loop, please.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Does that July give us enough time for
Yes, and
for,
that's why I chose that date, yes, sir.
How are you gonna mail out to over 20,000 people when you didn't put that in the budget for a mail out?
Magic.
Nella's done the math. So it was $11,600 and some dollars for first-class mail. You have to go out first-class mail. And we don't have a choice. We got to mail these things out. It's law. So they have to go out. And we can print them, we can stuff them, we can do that. And we can do that in-house, and we can start that as soon as,
It's gonna take me 2 weeks.
so that's not an issue. It's,
Okay. All right, any more than this, you're gonna come back next meeting with the cost
cost.
April 29th.
Yeah.
for that? Okay, all right.
Can I
Oh,
ask one last question?
Yep, one last question.
Have all the citizens committees are, are they all in agreement of those?
Almost all of them have the same agreement across the board.
Okay,
You know, we have to increase it.
Yep,
We've been
okay.
at the same rate for so many years,
I'm good.
except for the
Are
ones
it-
that don't. So
Are any of them aware that they're gonna get an increase? I mean, you would think they would have to, but,
I have quarterly meetings, if not monthly meetings, with the ones that are active.
okay,
So yes,
Good.
sir.
okay. Okay, all right, item D, proposed modification of resurfacing, list 2022.
And this was just, we do have to change the resurfacing list slightly, and it just affects one commissioner. He happens to be the chairman.
I was gonna say, Mike, maybe we could split these up on two different transportation meetings where I'm not asking for money and at the same time, two different times, so.
So this is,
Shouldn't cost as much down in South Putnam, because we got all that equipment down there.
now this one, we're shortening the resurfacing for Junction Road. We've got about halfway down the road, there's 4 current cross culverts that are need replacement before we resurface it, and we might have to potentially add a 5th one, just because there's a lot of water on that road. So what I want to do, I want to continue with the resurfacing process, but I just want to cut this one 0.62 miles short. We will resurface up to a certain road and then stop on Junction Road. So that's what this is what we're presenting to the board today.
Commissioner Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Why would we do that? Money-wise, is that what you're referring to?
We won't have time to replace these culverts before the bids will go out, because the bids are about ready to go out pending.
Do you feel confident that we can afford to resurface 16.51 miles of road with our budget the way it is?
You talking about the whole budget?
Yeah, that was, it comes roughly to our estimate was, but yes. again, I don't know what the bids are gonna come in at, but
Well, the
based
reason I
on,
say that is, you know, I know Denise and Teresa out there need it. You and I have been out, that's that first MSTU road, but it goes all the way back to the back of the estates back there. But Commissioner Turner, don't hit me, okay?
I can't reach you, sir.
But I mean, if we're just waiting on a culvert replacement to finish up a road, I'm a county commissioner, I'm not a district commissioner, and I don't mind, we can push those two roads back a year to finish up a road if we have time to put a culvert in.
that's the thing, we don't have time to put there's some issues there. There's a lot of drainages. We're not sure where all the water's coming from. There's a lot of water on that road. We don't have right of way. We're working on.
Okay.
Yeah, there's an
right-
issue.
okay.
Junction Road from, really where the problem, if we go from Highway 17 to Old Mail Route Road, that takes care of a lot of the problems, and it will pave over
Okay.
an existing culvert that we have been working on for 3 years to get repaired, okay? Another one of those AWAs that ended up, was probably gonna cost 40, and it cost 80-something thousand dollars, right? So anyway, I don't know if there's extra money, but it sounds like even from our conversations yesterday, that there's not enough time to do that in this year, so I'm amenable to do that. There's at least 4 cross culverts that if we don't look at these to replace them and maybe adding another one, then what will happen is we'll have a St. John's Avenue scenario where these things are probably gonna end up failing, and then we're gonna have to do it after we pave,
Are you asking to do this?
asking to do.
What
Yeah, but
you're
I'm explaining,
requesting
I'm explaining why is it's gonna be substantial drainage, and we have to do some new drainage. If not, if we were to pave the rest of it next year, or if we were just gonna pave the whole thing this year, water would still come across the road.
And so this is simply just that I'm not gonna pave 0.62 miles of road that was basically on our list that you guys approved. So that's what this is.
I'm good.
Okay.
Okay.
Where do you, since I
What you
still have the
wanna do,
floor?
I think it's the only way to do it. We had talked about trying to find some other monies to do this and get it done. I'd like to get it done all at one time, but I don't want to not do any of it. So if we can just do this portion of it and concentrate on the 2023 budget to try to fix the drainage and finish the next 0.62 miles next year, that'd be good. And
That's what you wanna do, it's in your area, I'm
Yep.
game.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, since I still have the floor.
Sorry, I thought you
Bar-
were done. My
Barden
apologies.
Ranchette Road, I know the board approved it, but you were getting prices on it?
Correct.
That's not on this list, but
That
is
was that was.
that's gonna be a separate project?
That's a totally separate project. It's not a resurfacing. This is resurfacing for the resurfacing money we got,
Okay.
for this year.
Okay,
Barton Ranchette came out of, ARPA money, which is
Okay.
different, so it's gonna
I'm
be a
good.
standalone project.
Okay, you just need
Decide not
waiving.
to Do that one.
Yeah, I don't think it just,
You decide you didn't wanna do that one after all, Barden Ranch is?
no, I just thought, I didn't,
My district, you can't say
no,
that.
I'm not, no,
and that was different money, and so
We
it's,
promised
You're a
that,
county commissioner and all that, but
no, we fought
Okay,
for that
we just
one.
waive
Okay,
the support,
we're
so
good.
you move forward with that.
Yes.
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Okay. If you can move that up to the top of the list, I'd like to get that one done first. Okay,
If you were chairman, you could probably get that done.
Golly.
all right, Public Works Raise Grant Project Recommendations.
and this one should go fast, but,
Take a 5-minute recess.
we
take
wanna
a-
put in for 2 raised
Can we take a
grants.
5-minute recess before we
Okay.
do that? Okay. the workshop or transportation meeting and move down to item E. Okay. Sorry, Joe, I thought you were off the phone.
Okay, this is for raise grant, project recommendations that we want to submit for raise grants. There's two of them. One of them is a countywide drainage map or study, and we have one from Ayers back in 2006. And so what we'd like to do is get that updated, and then actually then digitize it and get a lot of these things on GIS. Because we got a lot of outfalls, we got a lot of cross culverts all throughout the county. And so what we want to do is use this raise grant money to update that existing plan, go forward and see if there's anything that's changed, and then get it so that it's, we can put it in our GIS system. It would help us out tremendously. So that's one project of the raise grant. And the other one is down on Ash Street, where we're tolls, where we put those giant culverts, is using that raise grant again to do some more fix up down there. We still got some of those large diameter pipes that are down there. But those are older pipes that are caving in, and so the other part of that raise grant is to do that work there.
So this is two projects to apply for the grant.
To apply
correct?
for grants, yes, sir.
Okay. All right, any questions?
I got a question.
Okay, Commissioner
Yeah,
Rawls?
So you've got the work from Ayers. In the past 15 years, how much has changed from an infrastructure perspective?
Probably not a lot changed, but there's probably enough that in certain instances, we have to see how much development has occurred in different places. Because, you know, you build a house, you're going to change some of the,
I'll give you a hint. 2008 happened. So anyways, you've got the information from Ayers. Is it possible to take that information and populate it into GIS without this grant? If we didn't get the grant?
I can say it probably, I don't know what that cost would be. But with this grant, what we do is we would update that system,
My question is, why would we not go ahead, if it's possible, to take that information from Ayers and go ahead and put it in GIS if that's a project that we're capable of doing now without the grant?
I'd have to get a cost. I don't even know what that would cost, because there are two huge binders, 3-ring binders, each.
So this is not digital information?
No, it's not digital information. It's all, we can't get the digital products.
Why?
I guess in 2006, we've asked and they don't have it digitally, so.
Okay, that's good, all good.
Okay, we just need wave of support, or we need
Yep.
a motion?
Yeah, I don't think we need a motion, no.
Okay, everybody's, okay, consensus? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? For the good of the order, Mr. Troxel?
I'm good, sir.
Okay. Okay, we go down to Commissioner comments. Commissioner Rawls?
I have none.
Mr. Harvey?
I have none.
Commissioner Adamsack?
I read the same article, and since Commissioner Turner stepped out, I read the same article he did in Wielaka, and I actually had approached, and he is looking into it, Alex Sharp is looking into that, if that DBC, which is the measure of the base, can be enforced. Like we did update our noise ordinance, like DBA, which is your high pitch. So he's looking into that, whether it's enforceable or not, if there's any statute on it as well, and I don't know if you would want to as well, but if we could, I would love to see us do that same type ordinance where we included the low base. Again, how does the sheriff measure it? I don't know, but maybe if they get called out 5 or 6 times, they can actually talk to someone about it. Maybe they can, I believe that's probably why we did it. But Alex was looking into that for me. Talked to him today, he just hasn't had time to do it, and that article just came out in the paper, I think, Saturday.
Right.
So, I would love to see us do that if that's possible. I think that's what he
Turner.
was probably gonna say. I was surprised.
Is it a noise ordinance or amplified
It's just,
sound?
it's just
'Cause we
changing,
went
well,
through-
yeah, it's amplified sound,
Okay.
but the bass is amplified sound as well, because it comes from a radio or whatever.
And that's what I probably, just
Just
to
a different
interrupt you,
measuring technique.
is from people with stereos in neighborhoods to some of the establishments. It's the bass. It's the bass is the problem.
Right.
So, okay. All right.
That's all I have.
Okay. All right, I have no comments. County Attorney? Oh, excuse me, Jeff, I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
I just had a question regarding that. So would that be criminal or civil? So how would the sheriff's department enforce that?
The Sheriff's Office enforces municipal ordinances
Would
all
they,
over the state.
that would be theirs?
I mean, it could be a second-degree misdemeanor, but it's always handled civilly.
In our current ordinance, I think there's a fine up to $500.
That's civil, right?
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Commando? You good? Deputy County Administrator, Ms. Julianne? Okay. All right, any further business come before this board? Public comment, we'll open up for public comment, but I think we went so long, everybody left. So, anyway, I'll close the public comment portion, and we stand adjourned.